Glad you guys enjoyed it. We'll kick it off and let them introduce themselves. Go ahead.
Sure. Chris Bouffard, writer, producer, actor.
Matt Mercer, director, editor, actor.
Yeah, give me a hand.
Producer. Thank you so much for coming out.
So, as we all know, it takes a village to make a film happen. So, anybody, cast or crew in the audience you want to acknowledge?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, raise your hand if you worked on it, because I know there are a few people here.
We know who you are. You just have to do it to remind us.
All right.
Yep.
We have Celia.
Yep.
Yeah.
Celia played Teresa in the. No. She played Sophia in the movie. Celia Finkelstein.
That's right.
Thank you. Jose Luis back there, our co-producer.
Our co-producer in the white shirt, black tie.
And also a wearer of many, many hats.
Bruno played Hani. It's Bruno right there. Medication. Anybody else?
Yeah, of course. Mr. Mike Childers.
Mike Childers back there. Yes.
And Charlie just stepped out. Anybody else?
Yeah, Charlie was here, who played Sean, but he had to go.
Cool. So for everyone watching and in the audience, we do these as inspiration for actors to create their own work. And so this is just a chance for people to share their story of how their films get made. So obviously it all always starts with the script and the story. So you want to kind of share how that came to be?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think Matt and I had been pals for couple years, and we just sort of shared the same sort of sensibilities for movies. We had a lot of, we used to just sort of talk movies like nobody ever does that in this town, and we were just sort of looking for a little project to collaborate on together, and I think we tried to do some sort of web series.
Yeah, we had a web series idea that fell apart.
And we sort of painted ourselves. We sort of painted ourselves into we wrote ourselves into a corner, and and I don't know. I mean, we were just. we were just really itching to do something, and then I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we were both looking for work as actors as well, pounding the pavement at auditions, and I had just come off. I'd done a couple of short pieces of short content as a director, but never a feature. I'd co-produced a feature called Contracted. Yes, which Caroline is in, Caroline Williams, ladies and gentlemen. But I hadn't directed a feature yet, and Chris knew I wanted to do that, and he was like, I remember you contacted me like a couple of weeks just before you showed me the script. He called me and said, I got something I want to show you. And so he came to my house and delivered it, and I read it and just really gravitated toward it because it was so. I didn't know what to expect, honestly, because I'd never directed a feature. I'd only produced. I'd edited some stuff. Chris had never written a feature, so I didn't know what to expect. And I read it, and what I really liked about it is that you just, it's a very slice of life thing. You just sort of step in and you get to know these people, and you step out. And I really liked how just colloquial and just matter of fact it was about watching these people's lives. It just kept me glued for that reason.
Did you have any ideas? Was it characters that you first started with, or kind of a plot line first that made you write? Kind of how did that domino effect kind of happen for you for writing?
Yeah, I think I guess around that time I was just sort of I was watching a lot of these. I love these mumblecore movies that started coming out in like 2006, 2007. And I like the fact that it was just people making movies on their own, but I also kind of like the issues that they were sort of talking about, just stability, relationships, stuff like that, stuff that when you turn about the age of 30, which unfortunately I'm a little bit older than now, you sort of struggle with, and I don't know, I wanted to kind of make something in that vein, and it started with I had done pharmaceutical research study when I was back, when I was 23, 24 or something like that, and I did it because they paid you like $35 a week or something, and when the study was over, they didn't give me you didn't get any more medication, so I was like, and it happened at a pretty big hospital right in the middle of Beverly Hills. I won't mention any names here, but I just thought that was pretty. I don't know. I thought that was a little striking. So I just kind of wanted. I just kind of wanted to shed some light on that, and that's where I sort of started the story.
And then once you got into writing, how many drafts? Did it kind of flow really fast, or did it take a while? Kind of how?
Well, I never sold a script ever before. I got a little close on like a movie of the week one time, but that was really about it. And I think a lot of the stuff that I did, I always really, like I had to really discipline myself to get it out. This just kind of happened, it happened. I think also I had this sense that I was working against the clock just because I knew that if I couldn't get Matt interested in this project, if I couldn't get Matt on board with me, that it would never happen. I knew that that was the only way that it would ever happen. It's true though. It's so true.
No, but thank you.
No, it's true. And so I just felt, I don't know, it just really kind of happened out of a lot of, it happened pretty natural, but I was also determined. I had this sense that it's gonna, like, I was like, if I can write this, if I can get Matt interested, we will make it happen. And I think the difference is when it's like, okay, well, if I can meet this person and they can put in, $10 million or whatever, it's like, it's a little less certain. So there was this certainty, and I think that really just added to the motivation.
And so then when Matt said yes, how'd you go from there? How'd you get your other producers involved? Kind of how'd you build that kind of core team out?
A lot of it was just reaching out to people that we knew, and it was that way with every department. I'd known Jose for a while. Jose had script supervised, contracted, and he's just an incredible problem solver and really great at figuring things out. And I knew that on an organizational level, he'd keep me in check, and he also AD'd the movie, which he kept us on the schedule. And then with, actors and all the other key positions, it was all people that I'd worked with in the past and knew could pull this in the very brief window that we had to do it in. It was extremely low budget. We're not mentioning the budget yet, but
it's
we're
somewhere
talking,
between $1 and the national deficit.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Probably closer to the dollar.
It's closer to the dollar. Yeah, much closer. But it was so tight, and so it was all about favors and getting people that I knew and had worked with, and that we all enjoyed working together and wanted to have fun making it.
When Matt says favors, we had Crafty, like we had a big tub that we sort of lugged around with us every day, and I think we had sodas. But what we did was...
Could afford sodas.
Yeah. We just... The most fun was just thinking of creative ways to make the budget work. And so what we did was, you kind of have breakfast on a movie. We shot 10 days. We shot, roughly 12 hours a day. So what we did is we'd have... And I think the main thing is when you're going to call in favors, you got to feed people. That's the bottom line. You feed people and you make them happy. Yeah. And so what we did is we reached out, and we said, if anybody could find it in their hearts, thank you, Caroline, to provide a meal one meal for us, that would just help us out immensely. And Caroline did. And so what we did is
probably half the people in this room did.
Yeah. And so that's what we did is we people just pitched in and they made our big meals for us and stuff like that. And
it was all about planning. Like yeah, like Chris said, it was all about planning. It was about making. When the budget is this low, it is all about pre-planning, because you're going to run into problems anyway. It's all about planning to such an extent and getting all these favors lined up and on a schedule. It's about making a schedule and getting people to show up at the right times. And with the meals, for example, it was all about finding people who really like cooking for people. So I found... I think Celia made a meal as well,
yeah.
But then it was every friend I could think of who enjoyed making food for people, and they made.
Oh, God,
a couple of them
good.
were so
good.
gourmet. I would almost recommend it on a feature actually, because people show up with these crazy meals that you could, instead of getting the cheapest meal possible, you get these incredible gourmet meals because people love cooking them. So that was kind of a treat actually.
Nice. And then as actors, did you write for actors you knew, or did you have kind of the actors in mind? How did kind of the casting come about for the movie, since you being actors? Maybe did you have that community already?
Well, I had a pretty strong sense I would cast myself in the part.
Well,
but
you still had to audition for yourself.
I had to audition.
Boy, was that weird. Sitting in a room and Chris auditioning for himself. It went on for like 30 minutes. It was really weird.
No, I give myself good adjustments though. I knew that, Matt and I definitely wrote, the Matt's part with him in mind, and yeah, a little bit. Actually, I think that part, Mike Childers' part, I definitely wrote for him, and
Yeah, with the key role, with the main roles, it was like an even split. I'd say we auditioned some, and like Katie auditioned. I think the lead, Teresa.
yeah, we
But it
didn't
was
we
like-
didn't have her. I mean,
Katie Wallack. Katie's not here, right? Katie? No.
No.
Okay.
We're giving her a hand for, and so then talk a little bit about that, being actors, being on the other side of the table. What did you learn or what did you experience? You're like, oh my gosh, this is something that I know as an actor now, being on the other side of the table.
Well, I can say that was one of the most nerve-wracking things was, again, on the tight schedule and budget we were on, the first day, like Chris said, they were 12-hour days, but we shot the movie in 10 days. So we were shooting anywhere from, I don't know, anywhere from 7 to 12 pages a day.
yeah,
And our
14 pages on the first day.
Yeah, our first day was it 14? That was okay. So the first day was 14 pages, and it was my character's house, and it was my first day directing a feature film ever.
And he
I
had to act
all
in
of my-
every scene.
Yeah, I had all my scenes just about, with the exception of some like small stuff, and that was nerve wracking. But what I actually came to discover was. It actually helps me as an actor, because as an actor, if I'm just sitting around, I tend to get in my head. I get really, really caught up in the minutia of the role, and I overthink things. But on the day, it was just like, I had the lines, which is obviously critical. It's a critical thing to have. And I had the lines down, so I went in, and there's just so much, especially on the first day when everyone's finding their rhythms and how they're going to do things. There's so much shit going on that I was just like, when it came to the acting, it was like, oh, a break. You know, I get to kind of have a break. I get to just sit and do a scene. So for me, I actually like it. I actually really liked figuring that out and just doing all the other things while acting.
Oh,
How was it for you?
Oh, exactly the same. I mean, it's like, I'll say number one, it's nice because when you work for somebody else, you get a little more money than when you work for yourself. But that being said, I loved it because it's like, number one, like what he said, it's like, I mean, when you actually do get a job, I mean, you sort of show up and you got to just sit there because they're all about making sure that you don't have to do anything. And I don't know, I mean, I don't know, I'm a pretty lazy actor or whatever, but like, I mean, the last thing that I ever like to be is like the actor in the corner learning over his lines, because I'll it's like you overthink it too much. I mean, I love running around taking care of anything that can be taken care of. I love being a producer too, because it's like, if you got to connect with people and listen and talk and share and stuff like that, I mean, the last thing you can do is be sitting by yourself for 20 minutes. I mean, it's great to be, hey, how can I help you? And I mean, I think,
Yeah, I just did a movie in Memphis that I was just acting in, and I thought I was going to blow my brains out. It was so nerve-wracking. Just not, and I don't want to sound like a jerk, but because I mean, and you do stuff to do stuff like. If you're in a scene, if I'm in a scene, I have to go check the monitor to see if it played okay. Like I can't just go, yeah, that's good, let's keep going, and not check in on the other stuff. But in a way, it sort of helps me too.
yeah, and it's just, I mean, like, needless to say, I mean, it's just so nice to work on a project with your friends. To work on a project because it's tough. I mean, when you do get a job, it's like you show up and it's like, it takes a couple hours to get used to it. I mean, it's nice after a couple hours because you start to loosen up and have fun and stuff like that. But it's like when you get to work with your friends on a set, there's just so much comfort and trust and stuff like that.
Friends who are also like really good at their job and kind of kept things moving. Everyone was chipping in.
Open up the curtain, kind of in the audition room behind the scenes as well, too. What was the discussions like of like, okay, how do you get down to that final person you decided to cast? Being actors and like, being cast and not having seeing that conversation. Now you have that conversation to go, okay, we're choosing this person versus the 5 people we saw. What was those conversations like?
Yeah, I mean, we had some discussions for sure. There were a couple of roles that we were like, I mean, we definitely debated. I mean, we talked about a couple of roles, like really not sure which way to go, and but being on the other side of it is certainly the best learning experience you can have. If you ever cast anything or produce and direct, being on the other side of the table is the best experience you can have as far as being able to determine what a good audition looks like and what you like, But it was just sort of, as far as the discussions of who we ended up casting, it came down to chemistry and I mean talent, obviously. I guess those are the two things. But you know, we saw a lot of friends in the roles and some new people, and everyone. I mean, we got really lucky in the room. It was a tough decision because everyone was really, really good, and Chris did a lot of the chemistry reads with the lead role, and yeah, it was tough. It was tough.
I mean, just to add to what he just said, I mean, you have to experience being on the other side of a casting because it's crazy. I mean, like, I don't know. I think maybe my emotions were just a little on high because we were, doing this big project that was, we were so, involved in. But it was weird. I mean, it was like these people would come in and it was like, this is probably my own projection, but I mean, I had to like go in the bathroom and cry a couple times because I felt so, it was like I could see them attaching their own expectations to their auditions, and it's like I certainly could relate to that, but at the same time it's like it really takes a lot of pressure off you to see that because you see that it's really kind of apples and oranges. Everybody's good. I mean, there's everybody's good, but what it comes down to, why you end up getting the job is it's chemistry.
There's so many factors, yeah, chemistry, and the other thing too is like as you watch the auditions, you so many times you're like, oh yeah, that's something I do. I do that, yeah. You're like, okay, I need to stop doing that. You just see all of these things, yeah.
You talked a little bit about production days. Did you guys have any rehearsals? Was it just all kind of the 10 days of shooting? What was that process like for you guys?
Yeah, we did have a couple of days of rehearsals, which is good, but.
Yeah, I think we had a table read and we rehearsed a few scenes, mainly between you and Katie, just for getting into the groove of the scene. Because I mean, this is obviously a very dialogue-heavy movie, and we also wanted the actors. Part of the reason we did rehearsals, we wanted the actors to, Chris brought up mumblecore movies earlier, and I wouldn't say this is exactly a mumblecore movie because mumblecore movies are very often more of an outline, and then the actors just improvise a lot. And this was more on the scripted side, but we did want the actors to bring their own colloquial read to it. So rehearsals were key in that regard, especially with Chris and Katie, because you guys came up with some good stuff in rehearsals that was used, I'd say. I mean, a lot of it was on, most of it was on the page, though, and then it was just sort of keyed off of that.
Where did you guys shoot? Was it all locally here? What locations? Talk a little bit about that.
How many of those 10 days were in my apartment?
A lot of them. A lot of them were in your apartment. We shot all over LA, friends' apartments. Again, the budget was so low that it was a lot of convincing people who had locations that we need, like the bar. Chris and I we actually met. We used to bartend at the Formosa Cafe together. Mm-hmm. And we convinced the owner to let us shoot there. I think I've shot every film and short that I've made at the Formosa and at my apartment. So that, I think the hardest one to find was the doctor's office, and that was actually, that was down to the wire. And that was my roommate is a personal trainer at a gym, and that was the physical therapist's office there. So that's what we used as the clinical trial doctor's office.
But this is, I mean, and that is the fun of producing your own work. I think like just finding these things is the most fun. Is just finding I don't know. I mean, I'm a sucker for a good deal, so maybe that's why I like it so much. But
yeah.
It's just
I mean, this thing had. Again, I'll say it again, extremely low budget, but it had about 20 speaking roles, 25 speaking roles, and 15 locations.
Yeah, and SAG roles.
So that's
SAG ain't cheap.
No, yeah. We had to figure all of this out and have the movie be insured and all that. But finding getting that many locations for no money, and we really, I think we got most of them for no money. We paid, utility fees, and we would pay a person who worked there to be there to oversee it. We didn't just go in these places or anything. We had, permission at every place, and there was somebody overseeing us. But yeah, and then otherwise exteriors were, it was a low budget, guerrilla.
Yep.
It was no permits, that. Talk about nerve-wracking. Actually, I'll tell two quick stories. Sorry, I went to these stories. One of them, we did get stopped one day when we were shooting the scene where...
Outside of a pot pharmacy.
Outside of the pot pharmacy. We had gotten permission from the pot pharmacy, but then they forgot that we were coming, and they were all like... they were really nervous about it, and the owner hadn't told the employees that we were coming. So we kind of shot it around the corner from the pot pharmacy, But then there was this homeless guy who lives there who watches, literally, this guy watches for shoots and calls the permit office
Not the
to
police.
out people.
The permit
office. He knows who to call. And he called this guy, and this guy showed up and shut us down. So I got off just the right amount of shots I needed to sell that we were outside of the pop pharmacy, and then we shot the rest of that scene in the back of Chris's apartment, like outside the back of his apartment, but it matched. And then the other scene that we shot, and Jose was just reliving this because he was, as the AD, he was really sweating bullets that day. But the scene where the car does the drift,
God,
where Chris's toe gets chopped off and they race to the hospital and the car does the drift. That is, don't do this, okay? Don't do this. But Chris has a really great stunt driver friend, a professional stunt driver. And we all got walkie-talkies. And we were in my neighborhood. That was just down the street from my apartment. God, I shouldn't be talking about this, should I? I should.
Don't mention any
I'm going to talk about it. So we I'm not going to mention any names. We just, we had a ton, that day we had the biggest crew we could get, and we stationed everybody at every corner with walkie-talkies, communicated, we had signals and everything.
Locked it down, yeah.
And then Chris put on a wig to pretend to be Katie, got in the car, and his stunt driver friend did it.
Like, why would I do that? Because if we would have gotten an accident, like in the after the first.
Yeah,
day.
we weren't thinking that clearly, but
Yeah.
we know the biggest concern was that somebody was going to walk out of their house or cross the street right when we started the acceleration, gunning into because basically my neighborhood has this place where 3 streets meet, and it's kind of a big enough piece of blacktop where a full nice big drift can happen, and we just stationed people at every corner and took that risk, and one time, and
you only get one.
Yeah, and we did it once. It was maybe one of 2 times we used both cameras. We used 7Ds on this. We used 2 7Ds, and we had both cameras. Celia was operating one camera actually, and our DP was operating the other one, and we just had the people stationed. And I'll tell you, when that car came around the corner with you guys in it, our hearts were in our throats. We were just like, oh. And then when it finished, and it was perfect because Chris's buddy is such a great stunt driver. He's been doing it for years. Don't try it if you're not a professional. So he finished it, and we were like, yeah. We were like, yo, we did it. Oh, man. And right when we started doing that, people started coming out of their houses to see what the noise was. And Jose comes up. He's like, guys, stop celebrating. Let's get the fuck out of here. Like, we have to get out of here. There are people coming to look at what happened. And then, yeah, sorry, that was a long story. But to give you an idea of how we got another location, though, the driver was also getting married.
Yeah, there was the wedding.
Getting married in a month. And so I agreed to shoot a wedding video for him if he let us shoot his wedding.
Yeah.
And that's how I got the wedding footage in the movies.
But
so he did a stunt and let me shoot his wedding.
Yeah.
In exchange for a wedding video. That's how we did that.
But, it never hurts to ask, I mean, I was like, oh my, it's one of my best friends, they're getting married, and I was like, I can't ask him. But they was like, yeah, of course, come and shoot, man.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, well, he's a really nice guy.
People will say yes. You ask him, you'd be surprised.
But that's the way you got to get things done. And again, the last thing I'll say, don't do that car thing.
No.
Get a professional to do it. Do it in the middle of nowhere. Don't do it in a neighborhood.
Yes, make sure you have a SAG rep come and be on.
That's right. This is never going up on the website.
It's all good. Talk a little bit about life after production, post-production in the film festivals. Did you guys plan for that? Did you oh crap, you have to raise money to do festivals? Talk a little bit about the planning for that.
Well, surprisingly, we came in under budget, which, for our ridiculously low budget. So we were able to even use some of the money that we had budgeted just to make the movie on, getting into the film festivals and stuff. And, and then so I think, I'm sure Matt can definitely tell you a little more about this. Matt was the editor. I was around for a little bit of opinion sort of stuff, but Matt's the one that sweated it out in his apartment, on Final Cut for 2 months putting together an assemblage cut,
Yeah, well, there was no money for Poe. I mean, we realized that if we were going to have money for festivals, which we did stay under budget production-wise, but to have money to submit to festivals. And we've played 2 festivals. We have a 3rd one coming up. But to have the money to submit, and I think we submitted to
Probably like 15,
10, 15,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's probably
To
about
have that money, we
$75
could,
each.
yeah, about that. We couldn't spend any of that money on post. So yeah, I did everything. I did the sound design, editing, all that. Except I didn't do the one thing we did hire someone on was post-production sound mixing. So that was it.
Matt,
but
talk a
everything
little
else-
bit about, since you are an editor, you kind of had those double eyes, but if you weren't an editor, how important is maybe having an editor see dailies or be on set to kind of help with that process? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's probably a good idea. I mean, as long if your editor's there and has the time to come by, I think that would be helpful. Yeah, and I think it's a good idea to if you're making a low budget movie and you can't hire an editor and you do it yourself, you just got to sit down and just go at it, just start learning it. But I think if you have an editor. Yeah, I mean,
Just to know you got things covered before you leave a location, if you need
Yeah.
a shot here or there or something like that.
Yeah, I think even before that, the most important thing that I've learned since this movie. Now, this movie is not.
Prep work.
This is a very organic movie. What's that? Prep work. Yeah, prep work is exactly what I was going to say. Like, this is a pretty organic movie, so I didn't storyboard a lot of it, but I did shot list the whole thing. And when you do that, you have a pretty good idea of what you need. Since this movie, I've actually storyboarded everything, which some directors don't like to do because they think it can make it stale. Because everything is just right there, and it doesn't mean things can't change. And if you have an editor on set, and same goes with the DP, they can sort of suggest adjustments, and if it sounds good, it's great. And if they're straying from the story by doing what they're suggesting, then you can say no, I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I mean, if you've never edited something and you're directing your first thing, and it'd probably be beneficial if they can be there.
And I'd probably add too. I mean, if you're gonna do something, which I mean, it's a lot of fun to get to improv, on a project. That's fun. But I would just say my only recommendation is just make sure you cover it from both ways. 2 cameras, that means, because sometimes you get something with 1 camera and then there's no way to match it, and you got to throw out something that's really great. So
Yeah.
if you can do your prep work that way, do your homework for yourself ahead of time that way, that helps.
Yeah, I think that's what it really boils down to is the prep work. And if you storyboard, you know what every shot's going to look like. Just pre-cut it in your head. Just go through it, pre-cut it in your head. What do you need to make the scene look like you want it to? And sometimes you know why you want a scene to look like it does because you're telling a specific piece of story, and sometimes you're just going with your gut, and that's what you write down. On this movie, we were moving so fast. Honestly, I actually got most of what I wanted on this, but there were a few scenes where it was like, the stuff hit the fan, and I had to consolidate my shot list. An example would be when Sean first comes to the door, when Charlie's character comes to the door, we shot it. We were so strapped for time, we just shot it in 1 wide. Chris goes to the door, I'm knocking. We did get my shot through the peephole thing. But the rest of it was just a wide, and we did go back for a pickup on that to get Chris's profile, because
Not just for that, it was a big pickup day.
Yeah, we got a couple other things, but I wanted that shot on the day, but we consolidated. We took a risk. We shot it in wide and didn't work. But sometimes it does. Sometimes you consolidate your list and it works great. I just did a short. I directed a short for Celia, and we had to consolidate like 3 shots in 1 scene, and it was a shot where she looks out a window, and we see what she sees out the window, and then we see a wider shot of that, and then we just made it, she sits in a chair next to the window, and then we see the person out the window that she sees, and we rack focus to them, and it's actually better. Sometimes it's better, you get better stuff when you get creative and consolidate.
I'd like to end one last question. After this experience, we'll go producer, director, what would be kind of your nugget of advice to give a first-time actor who's producing or directing, or any first-time producer or director, what would be kind of a nugget of advice now having this whole kind of experience with this film?
Well, I would say definitely do it, and just make sure that you surround yourself with, just make sure, surround yourself with good people, just surround yourself with, it's just good to know who's, whose passion is this? Whose passion is sound? Whose passion is, because that's how we made ours. I mean, we knew somebody who could score the movie. We knew a brilliant cinematographer, Lucky. We knew, a wonderful co-producer in Jose. I mean, it just, surround yourself with good people, and it's possible. It's a lot easier than you think.
Yeah. And then directing?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much nailing it on the head. Surrounding yourself with the right people that who you're comfortable with, especially in the first one. I think it's really important to be surrounded by people who are super into it, and you're very comfortable with them, and you might not know exactly what they're going to be right for, but let them tell you, like, would you mind doing this, or what would you want to do, and just have fun. Don't get and yeah, just do it, like Chris said. Just like go for it. I mean, I think surrounding yourself with friends you enjoy being around, and pre-planning. I would say that too. Just really just attack it like there's no mystery to it, really. It's like you get a camera, you get a sound mixer, you get someone to use the camera, and then you kind of just know what you want to see, and then what do you need in that frame? What does the script suggest you need? And just break it down piece by piece, bit by bit. And that's it. And then you're going to run into things where you're like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Oh, I didn't need that. But you won't know that until you do it. So just do it.
Let's give him a hand.
Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you guys all for coming out. Please do fill out those surveys. There's some extra pins on the table. Just drop them off there and volunteer, and they'll be around to say hi.